Ho, ho, ho. How the hell are you doing, Schlockaholics? Welcome back to another episode today. We are kicking off of the holiday season officially today with a selection by our very own Septum Sin from Septum Sin versus the World. And he chose a doozy indeed. This is quite a sweaty, cheesy little flick, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. Why don't you give us a little bit of information on what we're going to be talking about today, man?
Well, we've got the 1996 John Morlowski film Santa with Muscles, which stars Hulk Hogan. And I got to say that this is going to be very interesting as Hulk Hogan plays a over-the-top health food billionaire. And he, while basically committing lots of crimes and running from the police, gets amnesia and thinks he's Santa Claus, and ends up getting roped into a plot where he's saving orphans from an evil, another evil rich guy with a cast of B-list supervillains at his disposal. That's probably about as accurate as I can get when it comes to that.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean it's basically billionaire dude fucking clearly on all types of drugs, just assaulting his help staff, one of which is Dean Malenko, I'm pretty sure. I feel like there's a couple other wrestlers hidden in this movie too. I did have a few drinks at me when I was watching it, but I do remember I feel like Dean Malenko is one of those dudes at the beginning. Underrated wrestler too. But yeah, he's just assaulting his help staff, and just decides that they're gonna fucking go on an awesome paintball adventure, and for no reason at all, just start a high-speed chase with the police. And then in the course of like impersonating a Santa Claus to get away from the police, dude takes one hell of a bump to the noggin. And apparently just develops amnesia and becomes a superpowered mall Santa. And that's what more do you need,
Oh, yeah.
Was this your first time watching this, or do you have a history with this bad boy?
For me? No.
Yeah.
This is my fifth or sixth time watching this. I can't remember whether it was me or Jake that first stumbled upon this, because one of us told the other about it. And then I found it on this like Christmas movie pack, which had like 4 terrible Christmas movies, and I count this one in the 4. But I got rid of that pack because the others were super boring as well, and they came out with this on a standalone Blu-ray. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this has got to be there. And oddly enough, it looks good on the Blu-ray, and they restored some cut footage from the beginning. It's not a huge amount, but it adds a little bit to the opening. And I think to myself, that's amazing enough. But yeah, I saw it, and it was a little bit slow. I still say it's a little bit slow at times, but it's too wild a ride for me not to keep in my collection. I like weird stuff. I mean, shoot, I picked up a Troma movie about sock puppet monsters just because it was about sock puppet monsters recently. That's just how I roll when it comes to these things. So I've got
as you should. You guys take notes. You should buy more stupid movies. It really makes life just better living,
But yeah, I watched it.
Like oversexed rug munchers from Mars or whatever off the shelf, and just watch that trash,
Oh yeah, oversexed rug suckers from Mars, which we have to cover one of these days.
But yeah, rug suckers.
But yes, we will have to watch that one day as well. It's a fun one. It's also terrible, but
it's real bad. Cody, you'll love it, dude.
But how about y'all? I think we've talked about it before in the past, so I know you've heard of it before, Mo, but I don't know if you've seen it. And how about you, Cody? Is this first time for either of y'all?
I'll let you go first, Cody.
No, I've seen it. It's been a while, but I've definitely seen it before. I've off and on been a wrestling fan since probably middle school, so this isn't my first foray into Hulk Hogan's direct-to-video masterpieces.
Yeah.
Suburban Commando.
It's like
That's
a
a great
Thunder in
movie.
Paradise, baby. That's what it's all about.
He was in one of the Three Ninjas movies too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I've got a lot of them that I like. And by the way, this is one of Mila Kunis's first roles.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, I forgot all about her until I saw the title sequence at the beginning.
I don't know if she wants to claim it, but
Probably not.
She should. She's one of the better parts of the movie. So how did you find it when you saw it? I mean, obviously we grew up with varying degrees of quality Hulk Hogan films. So where did this kind of land on the spectrum for you as a lad?
I mean, as a kid, you like it better because you kind of forgive some of the ridiculousness and not in a good way, just the not making sense and taking way too long to get to certain areas of the movie. But I would, as far as his movies, I mean, I would put it in the lower echelon of his direct-to-video stuff. Not that I didn't enjoy it though.
Yeah, I mean, don't get us wrong. It is yet another example of Hulk Hogan's just immeasurable talent when it comes to acting. Oh boy. I don't know if I ever saw this one in its entirety as a kid. I feel like it was one I would either catch it maybe on TV or my brother rented it a few times or something, and I saw bits of it. And even as a child, I was like, "That's real fucking dumb," you know. But I do enjoy it. You know, it's kind of one of those things like you're watching it, and it makes you nostalgia for all of the holiday garbage we would be subjected to as kids. You know. And some of us still willingly participate in that shit. Usually I'm not one of them, but when it comes to shit like this, I will definitely make an exception because it's got that added nostalgia factor of Hulk Hogan being involved. And then you got not only Mila Kunis, but Bob Pinciotti being a slimy fucking Christmas elf. So you've got like a little, you know, partial That 70s Show cast well before that show ever happened. I like to think, even though this clearly takes place in the 90s, that it's somehow canon to those characters now. Like that they did meet that one time on that Santa adventure. And it's fun. You can tell Hulk Hogan would rather be almost any place in the world during most of the movie. And I think that just makes it funnier, you know? Like, I don't think anybody involved in this thing wanted to make this thing, but there are people in there that can't help but deliver good performances because they're solid character actors, you know? We got, what's his name? Ed Bagley Jr. is in here or whatever.
Clint Howard,
yeah. And then, like we said, Mila Kunis and Bob Pinciotti from That 70s Show. The lady that plays like the main lady at the orphanage is somebody too, but I was pretty buzzed when I watched it, like I said, so I don't remember what the results of that were. But
I recognize the guy that worked at the orphanage, but I couldn't pinpoint what I've seen him in. But I think I've seen him in quite a few things.
And then there's that little kid with the big ears. I think his name is Taylor. He's in a bunch of movies. I think he's in that movie Angus as his little best friend, isn't he?
I love that movie.
It's amazing. Great soundtrack too. It's a shame it's not shitty enough. We could cover it on here one day, but it really wouldn't fit because Angus is legitimately a great film.
Great movie.
Yeah, Garrett Morris is the guy that was running the orphanage. He's in a lot of stuff, but he does a lot of background roles. So he's one of those, like, I recognize him because he was like driving a cab or something and some other.
Oh, right. That's Taylor, I think, right? Is that old dude? Or is that Clayton? Is his name in the movie? Okay, Clayton. Yeah. Taylor's the little kid with the big ears that I was talking about. But yeah, Clayton, I recognize him from shit as well. So there's like recognizable faces all over this thing.
Man, Taylor has definitely aged over the years, but I guess this was 96, so, you know. I think we've all gotten older since 96.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm not exactly going to be fitting into my Bugle Boy shorts from the back in those days anymore. Time takes a toll. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's solid cast, solid performances by everybody other than Hulk Hogan. And it's just amazing because the movie is just so crappy that it didn't deserve a lot of the people that are in it, but it just makes it an even more fascinating turd that they're in there, you know. Is it just me too, or does that cast of like supervillains kind of give you almost like they could be in like a Moonbeam film or something, like the Full Moon kid movies that they would do?
Right.
And the soundtrack kind of reminds me of a Moonbeam movie as well. So
when they were over the top, let's see. You had a kung fu doctor called Dr. Blight. I remember that name because Dr. Blight.
Yeah.
You got this dude who like used skunk smells and stuff, like the stink bomb dude, and then you had
Dr.
like
Vile.
you had the
But spelled
electric
like
girl.
Vial, you know.
Oh yeah.
And then you had what was it? Flint was the geology dude.
Oh yeah, Dr. Blight, Dr. Vile, and Dr. Watt, and then there's Dr. Flint.
What's up, Jeff? It's been a while since I've seen my boy Jeff Wadley in anything. I'm glad that you remember this film. A lot of people probably wish they don't. Yeah, I liked that fucking cast of villains, man. And you know, obviously Dr. Blight was pretty badass as well. He had a good slimy vibe to him and some really sick kung fu moves. I think it was more like Taekwondo if we're being accurate here, but who cares? It's a solid cast of characters, you know.
Which that was a former wrestler. That was Brutus Beefcake.
What is that? Brutus Beefcake?
Yeah.
Was that guy?
Yep.
They're so much scrawnier in this movie, man. 96 was not a good time for those dudes. Hulk Hogan is fucking scrawny as hell as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie's called Santa with Muscles, but
well, he was showing his
oddly
age.
enough, he's probably the least jacked of any of his movie appearances. And I fell asleep at the end of this, and like I woke up, and I think it was Super Agent or Secret Agent Society or whatever that movie that he did was autoplayed.
Secret Agent Club.
He's buff and he's got his actual hair in that. And there was like a split second when I woke up where I was like, wait a minute, did his Santa powers wear off or something? And he became actual Hulk Hogan? Because we cannot not talk about that fucking embarrassing hairpiece that they probably spent a third of the budget of the movie on. Oh, well, terrible. Okay, it's a great hairpiece, but the fact that it's there is not for him. Embarrassing. Yeah. Well, he was like, what are you doing, man?
He was starting to show his age by 96, though. So, you know, I mean, his prime movies were in the 80s. So, he was active in the early 80s and late 70s wrestling, and then through pretty much.
He didn't even have hair like that back then.
Yeah,
Hulk Hogan never had that hairline that he has in this movie. That I'll almost guarantee you that was some vanity thing that he put into his signing on contract or whatever, where it's like, I'll do the movie, but you got to make me a dope hairpiece. And they were like, all right, brother, we'll do it. You know, and here we are.
Probably that, and he also had to wear a bandana at least once.
And Ed Leslie was like, he was a wrestler that played one of the villain things there, the sumo guy that they put in, like, yeah, he'll match Hulk Hogan strength for strength, and didn't. Sumo lab assistant. I like the name. You know, not even a full name. It's just a sumo lab assistant.
It's a good attribute for a lab assistant to have, I guess. Some sumo skills. You never know. I don't know, man. This movie it's definitely an oddity. And there's just something about this era of crappy Christmas movies that there was a lot of fun ones, even ones I probably don't remember fully. I just remember watching a lot of cool Christmas garbage like this as a kid, because when you're a little kid, especially if you're a little genre fan or whatever, you just want to be watching horror movies or something, you know, but your parents are like, oh, it's December, we've got to watch holiday films. So you end up watching junk that they like, and as a kid it's boring. Most of that stuff's some of my favorite Christmas shit in the world now that I'm older, but as a kid I was like, this is fucking lame. But you throw something like this with Hulk Hogan in it, and little 90s kids are going to eat it up just because it's Hulk Hogan, you know. Especially in 96, this was like peak WCW era right there. So, you know, I imagine had I been able to get over the fact that it was a Christmas movie, I might have been pretty fired up on it, especially with the appearances of the other wrestlers in there. But yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. Take us away to lead us through this thing, man. It's quite the ride.
Well, yeah, the this time, I mean, I find it really weird how we've got him sitting there, and he's this multimillionaire, supposed to be one of the richest millionaires in the world, and he's like a health food tycoon. Saw it on TNT. Very interesting.
Makes sense. Yeah, I feel like I did see it on TV, so I'm glad that's confirmed.
That's what WCW was on, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
But I did find it interesting. He does this training thing where he's got his staff set to try and take him out, and he's supposed to try and do that. And this training exercise devolves into this odd paintball match that devolves further into police chasing him and him going, instead of like, okay, let's pull, it's like, no, let's run from them. Like, I can't be stopped. And the idea, I guess, is supposed to kind of have him come off as a douchebag. And he kind of does.
He does, yeah.
He
It
doesn't
works.
play it fully enough for me to get a total feel for his character because it's sort of just flat.
Because he's on drugs. It seems obvious to me that there's like the underlying current of a lot of cocaine going on in the production of this movie. And the logic behind this whole shit is a prime example of that. Like, they're just supposed to be doing this training thing, and they're doing paintball stuff, which is harmless enough, but then he just decides to turn it into like felonies and a fucking giant high-speed police chase that ends up as a foot chase through a fucking mall where he steals a Santa outfit. I mean, you don't do that type of stuff if you're in your right frame of mind. That's even if you are an eccentric fucking granola millionaire,
he shoots paintball at the police car. I tell you right now, that's enough right there. They'd be getting out their real guns and starting to shoot.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
How funny would that have been if that was the cause of the amnesia, as a bullet grazes his skull? It would have made a lot more sense,
Santa walks around with this bullet sticking out of his brain.
Yeah,
like
he's just got a fucking bullet wound the whole movie while he's dealing with the kids.
But I felt really bad for that police officer. He's just doing his job, and this asshole comes around and basically screws with him.
I like how passionate Ron Howard was about not letting him get away with Santa fraud. Like, it's an actual thing that happens, and he feels quite passionately about it, which makes sense because he is like a 50-year-old, 8-year-old, and that's what makes Ron Howard adorable.
And we also
Clint Howard, my bad.
We also get like our introduction to the bad.
Ron Howard has a closer hairline to the hairline they gave Hogan in this than Hogan has ever had.
He likes to wear caps, like I do for my to cover it up. But that's
ain't nothing wrong with having a receding hairline, but you don't make this fucking crappy Christmas movie spend a third of its budget to make you a fucking hairpiece. That's the best effect in the movie, is that fucking hairpiece that he's rocking.
But we also get introduced to the bad guys, and we find out that they're like shaking down people to get the property rights for something going on underneath the land, and that orphanage's dead center. And the orphans are like, we need some sort of help because they're destroying our, they're basically coming in and bullying them, doing silly stuff as they travel around in a freaking ice cream truck.
Which is fucking awesome. Again, another level that gives it almost like a Trauma Full Moon kind of vibe. Like, what is happening here?
Although not the first movie.
Involved. Go ahead, sorry.
Although it's not the first movie that Clint Howard was in with an ice cream truck.
Oh, yeah, true.
You're not wrong, and we'll probably cover that on here someday.
But, in the mall, he dresses as Santa. I want to say he tries to hide by hanging down the garbage chute, which
right
I
next to
believe
him
is how he gets knocked down.
Two hands
yeah. Ends up hitting his head and loses his memory.
Yeah, he was about 5 years out from the steroid lawsuit that would, kind of put the damper on him being able to hold that grip for very long. Maybe if it was 1985, it would have worked out. But it wasn't. It's 1996, so he fell so fucking hard down that chute, dude. I about woke everyone in my house up laughing at that shit.
Maybe you come get the dog and let her outside. She's freaking out.
Oh boy, she's excited, man. It's the holiday spirits entering into her.
Let's go. Outside. Go. Come on.
Doesn't someone drop like a Santa dummy down the chute and it hits him and that's what makes him fall? Or is this scene just kind of confusingly composed?
It was confusing for me. All I know is that he ends up falling down, hitting his head, and then loses his memory, which, of course, the dude who plays the elf really takes advantage of because he owes $50 to Dr. Blight.
It's
for
such
some
an
reason.
innocent amount too for like a kid's film, you know.
He's like, I'll get it back if I can find this Santa because they offer like, where's Santa? He's probably off drunk again, you know.
Yeah. Or
I
fucking
imagine-
Jack Death shot him after traveling back in time. You can never really tell with those mall Santas. It's a hard knocks life. But yeah, basically they offer him the bonus, and then he also owes them money, and he promptly steals Hogan's wallet.
Yep.
And is going to use his American Express cards to like withdraw all his cash or whatever. And
The most most advanced ATM I've ever heard of.
Oh, I love the ATM that he's thinking of in his mind, and you'll get $1 quadrillion. Like it's an amount, but obviously it was made to say like that so that would speak to kids who watch the movie because that's how a kid would think. But I was like, it just goes to show you his mindset.
It also goes a long way towards explaining how something like fingerprint identification on a random ATM machine makes some sense in 1996. For a little kid, they might think that's plausible, you know. They still don't have that, which is odd. You'd think they would at this point.
One certain hand. You have to use one. You can't use either or.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the best part.
Yeah. You got the wrong thumbprint. Yeah, because he gets the thumbprint on the glass. So he takes it over there and then it
rolls it on there.
But he convinces him he's Santa, and then he takes him over there. He plays Santa while these two guys try to like rob this guy. So he's like, nah, and beats the crap out of the two of them. And everybody starts loving Santa, who gets invited over to the orphanage. And I can't remember how that happened, that he got invited to the orphanage.
He doesn't. He sees the sign for the children's mission because it's like sponsoring the Santa thing or something as a fundraiser. They have an adjacent fundraiser going on. And it kindles that fucking Santa spirit, man. He's like, I got to get over there and help those children's. And so that's what they do. On a sweet Vespa.
I do like how the guy who plays the elf, he's wearing those footy pajamas for a good portion.
It's so good, dude. That whole scene, that's my favorite chunk of the movie is where they're at the orphanage and she builds them the badass suits and stuff. Like, it's just so cool. I like how they sort of halfway through the movie decide that it's going to be a superhero movie. Like, he just all of a sudden has super strength and stops that ice cream truck with that fucking chain or whatever. And it's just great.
He stops doing the traditional Santa suit. Like, as soon as he ends up taking on those, he gets like that kind of muscle Santa suit with just takes off the beard, just has his mustache with the hat, and he just flexes his muscles as he's doing his thing, fighting.
Yeah, dude. And to his credit, he did get some pump going on for those scenes where he's in the cutout. Like, he was fucking lifting in between like every take to keep that pump going because we grew up seeing that guy look like a fucking monster, and and this is being generous. He's like half his size that we are accustomed to seeing Hulk Hogan at.
Oh yeah,
this movie, but he does a good job of getting the pump on for those scenes where he's got the pythons out, you know. So respect.
Just go from this to no holds barred.
He was a monster back when steroids were flowing free, and he was able to just do whatever the fuck he wanted, you know. Mm-hmm. He trimmed down a bit for the 90s, but then, you know, shortly after this, I think is where the Hollywood Hogan shit hit its peak.
Yeah.
And he was really, you know, ball juicing again for sure.
Yeah, this was
and he got big again for about a while, you know.
Yeah, this was right before he started becoming a bad guy in the wrestling circuit. So yeah, he was still the good guy, but it was towards the end of that whole. Yeah, actually, that was around the time I stopped watching any wrestling.
Probably a good choice, man. It got real bad for a bit.
But yeah,
worse than this movie, if you can imagine.
I really don't think there's a need to go through much of what happens in between that towards the end, other than saying that he fights them off. They think of other plans. He fights them off, and you find out that there's this weird energy source underneath the orphanage, behind a vault of all things.
Yeah,
that
the kids have found. That's where they lost me, dude. That's where the
And
logic went out the window, where she's like, "Oh yeah, the catacombs. The kids use it as a fort." You know, it's like, what kind of fucking orphanage is this?
And they
You're
had
just
figured out
letting
most
kids
of
play
the.
in catacombs, unmapped catacombs. What
I
the
also
fuck?
like how there's this giant vault door, and they knew about the vault door, but when he asked, "Is there anything that might be odd here?" They're like, "I don't know." It's like, yeah, everybody has a vault like that that's never been opened in
Yeah,
their basement. You know,
could
it
be
just
anything.
happens.
What were you gonna say, Cody?
Oh, and the fact they've obviously been down there for so long, they knew the majority of the combination to the vault. The
Yeah,
kids
they've
have
been
figured it out.
cracking the fucking code. It could be
Yeah.
anything in there. It could be like Cold War chemical weapons, but sure, they're playing in the catacombs. Why not? That's totally normal. Uh, I mean, the movie had some skewed logic up to that point, but when they hit the catacombs thing, I was like, "Are you fucking serious?" You know,
Oh,
even for a kids movie, this is a stretch. You know.
it goes even further off the rails when you find out that both Hulk Hogan and the bad guy were raised together in the orphanage.
Yeah.
They were best friends at the time.
Didn't remember it at
Uh,
all.
And neither one of
see,
them really remembered it, except for the bad guy. Actually, Hulk Hogan didn't remember the orphanage period,
Right.
and the bad guy remembered the orphanage to the point where he had a vendetta against the orphanage.
I don't think they were working with the same script, and I don't think that that part of the fucking movie existed when they started shooting the thing. This movie, like you said, it drags, and it really does.
Yeah.
It drags in an entertaining way, but there is a point where you hit where you're like, okay, we're 45 minutes into this. This should be over in like 10 minutes, right? You know, and then you look and it's like, oh shit, there's like almost another 30 or 40 minutes of this movie left somehow. It's like it reminds me of that fucking Invader Zim episode, A Room with a Moose, where it's like
Oh
you're
yeah.
just stuck there in a room with a moose. You know, there's no reason for it. Like, how am I still watching this after an hour and a half is beyond me. But here we are.
Yeah, I remember pausing it, thinking we were about at the end of the movie, and I was almost at the halfway point.
Yeah,
there's
almost.
Yeah.
there's a film that I may introduce here one day in the future, amongst the hundreds to thousands of titles that I've got that I would love to introduce, called Dave Builds a Maze, and it's about and I guess it's higher budget than it should be, but it's so weird and didn't really get me where I figure it considers itself schlock, because it's a guy builds a cardboard maze, and then everybody gets trapped in it, and it becomes this death maze with a minotaur all made of
That
cardboard.
sounds fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah,
We
they
have
kill
to do
people,
that.
but the people who die, then their heads come off like little red sprays of cardboard come out instead of blood. It's just
That's what this movie was missing, was a
Yes.
body count and gore. If it
Yes,
had both
yes.
those things, it would be pretty much perfect even at its runtime. And I know we've made it sound like we're kind of ragging on this. We honestly all did have a lot of fun with this, as bad as it is. That's kind of
Yeah.
the point of a lot of these movies that we're going to cover. And don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of a movie that gets exponentially more stupid as the runtime goes on. And this movie fits that fucking criteria, you know. Like you don't think it could possibly get dumber at a certain point, and then it gets dumber, and you're like, that's magnificent. You know, they really went there with it. The kids are just playing in the catacombs, and you know,
I think at this point we almost prefer it.
And they
Yeah.
play with that whole like traditional theme, because you even have the part where he gets his memory back and he kind of sulks a little bit, and they're like, well, you're not really the Santa we need, until then they're like taken captive, and then Hogan's like, no, I must be Santa again, and he goes back to save them with that final fight between them and the villains. And I do feel like that the electric villain and the stinky villain were very underused in this. They concentrate on, I guess, because they didn't have budget for it, really, because their effects look like they were more costly. I mean,
Like
shoot,
the rock guy got more time than they did, and it's like, what? The most boring one? Like that would be the toy that no one would buy in the toy line, you know, but somehow he's getting more screen time than some of these other people that we obviously want to see more of, you know.
Oh, and let's not forget that the main villain is a germaphobe who walks around in a like
He
Howard
is.
Hughes
I
type.
love that part where he just fucking douses that dude with Lysol because he brings them unsanitized papers. It's fucking great, dude.
But I mean, he comes in and he does a real visit where he's wearing a hazmat suit, which I guess works because he looks like a supervillain in the hazmat suit. And I do like how in the fight, the one elf guy is like, yeah, well, I don't care about hitting a woman. Throws water on her and electrocutes her basically to death almost.
Yeah,
It's a kid's fun film.
See, I was kind of fading out towards the end, I'm not gonna lie. And then, like I said, I fell asleep, and then I woke up, and that other Hulk Hogan movie had autoplayed, and I was like, wait, what happened? Did he become actual Hulk Hogan through the power of Christmas, or what is going on here? But man, it does feel like if this movie had a bigger budget, all of that stuff that I do remember from that could have been way crazier, and we could have had some crazy scenes of them maybe even just finally going all out and just terrorizing the entire fucking city with like their science powers or whatever. I do kind of like how they were, science based too, right? Because it's a kids film. So with a bigger budget, they could have almost done more of like a Captain Planet kind of a thing going on there or something. I guess what I'm getting at is it made me kind of want a Captain Planet movie.
I mean, the only thing left was really they had that fight, and I found that also weird because they established that those crystals are highly volatile and that the slightest vibration would set them off to explode. So therefore, they both pull like a large crystal out and start a sword
fighting with it.
with the two explosive crystals.
Trial by stone, baby. Let's do it.
Which, by the way, does cause a chain reaction that causes the entire orphanage to blow up. But still, I find that funny that neither one of these, and one of them professes to be a doctor of all sorts and should know these because he wants this stuff, decides to set off the chain reaction to destroy all of the stuff that he was looking for. Oh my gosh.
See, another area where the plot makes a ton more sense if you switch it to be about drugs. Yes. Then you might destroy the fucking stash if you're gonna get caught or something.
Maybe that's what the crystals are.
Yeah.
My goodness.
We're joking, but definitely there was a lot of holiday movies, I think, that were, as I said before, made during a very white Christmas indeed back in the 90s. So you could just crank out holiday trash. This movie probably did pretty good relative to its budget, I would imagine, just because there was a thirst for just random home video entertainment, even still in 1996, may not have been the 80s anymore, but you plug some asshole like Hulk Hogan in it and put it in front of a bunch of little kids like us that were going to buy this shit out of it, and you guys watching it as children probably put a decent chunk of change in Hulk Hogan's pocket, and very few other people's, because that tended to be how that worked back then.
Look at Santa Claus the movie with Arthur himself as the head elf, with explosive candy canes that are a drug that makes you fly if you eat them. I mean, right there, it's drugs. He was being a drug dealer for Santa.
Yeah. Everybody was peddling the smack back in those days. That's what, but this definitely had some of that going on. And I think that if you made this an R-rated version of this, it could work just as well. You'd have to change very little about this movie to make it R-rated. You would just have to change the way a few things are worded and add blood and gore, and
cat swarm,
excessive drug use. So I don't know. Remember, if you're gonna, depending on which Santa you believe in, if you believe in Santa with muscles, leave a little pile of cocaine out for him this Christmas so that he can get that route done and get back to the North Pole, man.
Just leave Santa out his protein powder.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Actually, kind of think of it. I've been watching that new the Santa Claus TV series on Disney Plus, and I swear they're using some drugs with that one too.
Probably.
It's kind of odd, but they really go all out into the North Pole lore thing. They flesh out that world.
I've heard it's fun.
It's fun.
I'm watching the original trilogy, I guess. I only ever saw the first two back in the day. I really don't think I saw Santa Claus 3.
And they got the guy.
We'll find out, but
they got the guy who played Kumar from Harold and Kumar to come back and take over as Santa with from Tim Allen, who's also in this on the regular. But it's a very very odd.
It sounds like it.
He sounds like he's doing some cocaine as he's going through this, which he very well might.
I'm sure fucking conservative Twitter loved Brown Santa too. Fucking cope, you'll live. Who cares? They're fucking Christmas movies, man.
Yeah.
You know, like at the end of the day, as much as I love my most beloved Christmas movies, the only ones that have real legs to me is shit like Gremlins or Die Hard or Trance, stuff that I can watch when it's not Christmas, you know. I love a good Christmas movie, but they have their time and place. It's basically junk that you watch during the holiday seasons while you eat a bunch of junk food and you wait to open cool gifts and hang out with your family. That's it, you know. This fits the bill in every way, in my opinion, just as much as something that you could argue is much better, like the Santa Claus with Tim Allen. Sure, it's more heartfelt, you know, but after you've seen it once or twice, you're having about the same amount of fun with either of them. Let's be honest, you're just using it as an excuse to like kick back and wear cozy pajamas while your kids like pay attention to something for a minute and the house is nice and chill. That's the whole point of Christmas movies, you know.
I mean, now, another one that uses a wrestler as Santa that also did pretty fun was Santa.
Oh boy!
Which that was a different type of a Santa with muscles, so to speak.
Dude, if we hadn't covered that so recently on Inside Movies Galore, I probably would have submitted that this year. But maybe next year we'll do a revisit of Santa's sleigh, because you've seen it, right, Cody?
Yeah, with Goldberg.
Oh, yep. Man, that is one of my favorites. I fucking love it.
Time to spread a little Yuletide fear.
Hey, dude. Not enough movies that have curling involved in the climax either. I think that's something that needs to be rectified. This could have used a curling scene or two. I think it would have spiced it up a little bit. Maybe they could have been curling with kilos of cocaine.
I think with a couple of adjustments and maybe a little bit more money, Santa with muscles could have been more entertaining. But as it is, I think it's an entertaining enough classic that's bad enough that it can turn over into the so bad it's good territory a little bit. not a lot, but a little bit.
It is a holly jolly crapster piece, folks, and you definitely need to see it at least once to believe it. I don't think anything you could ever add to this movie would make it a good movie, but I don't think that should be your aim. You know, it's not meant to be a good movie. It's meant to be a fun movie, and it certainly is a fun movie. I will give it that. There's plenty of lines in it too that I remember thinking were pretty subtly funny. Or obviously funny, but I watched that Bad Ben Christmas special this morning and that kind of purged most of them from my mind. But there is some pretty solid little one-liners in here, none of which are delivered by Hulk Hogan, that are pretty goddamn funny. You know, Hulk Hogan is the weakest link in this movie, though, if we're being honest. Everybody else in it is what makes it have the personality it does. Hulk Hogan's fucking reading his lines like he's reading the back of a bottle of shampoo while sitting on the can. You know, like it's you could tell he does not care. And he had much bigger things brewing at the time. So this was something he did to probably get a paycheck to pay for some cocaine and that juice that he needed to get all NWO buff shortly after this, you know. There was no part of him that gave a shit about one single syllable of the script of this thing, and I think it makes it hilarious. You know, if it was anybody else in there, if it was Jean-Claude Van Damme's, about the only way I could think of this being like better. Man, how come he never did a Santa movie?
You leave Van Damme out of this.
I think what, you don't like Van Damme?
I love him.
So do I, man. I think a fucking Van Damme Christmas movie is exactly what we need.
He can do no wrong.
Just doing splits between two chimneys.
That's
That'd
right.
Be fucking awesome. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you put Van Damme in this, maybe I think he would have believed the goofiness of this, because he has a tendency to really get behind stuff like that. Hogan doesn't give a shit, and that makes it funny. You know, like you sent that screenshot, and my comment was, "Man, he looks depressed," because he does at different points in this movie. You can just see that dead look in his eye where he's like, "I'm really doing this." You know, we're like probably 3 weeks into shooting a Christmas movie right now. Yeah, it's like it is hilarious. So if you like watching your heroes in awkward positions where they were doing filthy, sordid things for money, this is also a good thing to check out. And it's got that holiday cheer wrapped around it, so it makes it a little wholesome at the same time.
No, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that's there for Santa with Muscles, really. I mean, listen, if y'all have something else to say on it. I mean, there's not much with music and special effects. I feel like they pushed it to where they could with the budget, but you know, it's
Special
enough to be
effects are
cheesy.
ass, but the music I thought was pretty decent for what it is. Like I said, it reminded me a lot of the Moonbeam movies that Full Moon would do, like their kid-friendly line of films. And the villains really reminded me of that as well. So, you know, those things coupled together gave it a good layer of shit that I really appreciated. The soundtrack isn't great, you know, it's not a magnificent Christmas score or anything like that, but it works. It's got that fun, whimsical 90s goofball vibe to it that I like. So
I do like that in their second car chase, they do come ready with the rocket launcher.
Yes, they do.
oh man, I was dying. That was so good. Fucking for real, like an anti-tank fucking rocket launcher. Some serious fucking hardware. A lot bigger caliber than the paintball guns.
Right.
I don't know, man. I think that for production design too was pretty good. Actually, it's easy to overlook that in this film, but all the sets and locations looked pretty solid. The orphanage I thought looked like a proper 90s YMCA sort of, I don't know, like, you know, you see a lot of those orphanages in various movies from the era. It looked legit, I guess, you know, compared to other ones that I've seen. It reminded me of like a fuzzier version of like the orphanage they live in Freddy's Dead, you know. So there you go.
I think the only other thing I got on it, I do like the very fancy telescope they had that they could watch them in prison wearing like the 1950s like prisoner garb, picking up trash.
Yeah, man.
Well, you know, if you were like if you were living right next to a high security prison, which is weird,
With a bunch of children.
a bunch of children, you know, I guess the new orphanage should always be near the prison, just in case they're bad. I guess, you know, it's a good place to time out them.
I mean,
right.
by 90s logic, they're just going to end up there anyways. So, yeah, it's fucked up, but that's probably the way that they thought about it at the time. You know?
But you know, might as well watch. Like, hey, kids, take a look. Okay, this is your future if you don't do right.
Pretty much. So yeah, man. I mean, there's not a lot of technical specifics to get into with a movie like this. I feel like it's safe to say, given the same amount of money, we probably could have made a better movie. But that's not the exercise we're working with here. Would it have been as fun? Probably not, because it wouldn't have had that sort of whimsical, naive, like let's just make this shitty holiday movie with Hulk Hogan because it'll sell kind of vibe to it. You know, we would have probably tried to do something good, and that would have just ruined it. You know, so, I'm glad this ended up the way that it did. So yeah, we have favorites, favorite characters, favorite scenes, favorite line of dialogue. If you want to toss that in there.
Oh, let's see. Gosh. Well, my favorite's the sleazy elf. I mean, he's
Oh, Bob Pinciotti, man. We didn't get to see if did he have his perm in this, or is that exclusively a '70s show thing?
I think
we
he
ever
was
saw
almost
him without a
bald.
hat.
yeah, he's almost bald
No.
in this.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, he was sitting out there trying to get a tan. I don't think he had any hair, if I remember right.
Wait, isn't it a wig in that '70s show as well? Doesn't it turn out that Bob's fucking magnificent perm has actually just been a rug the whole time? And then Red finds out about it, and there's like a whole episode where they're all awkward because he doesn't want to address that he saw Bob without the hairpiece or something like that. It's been a while since I watched the show, but that does sound familiar. Yeah, Yeah, sorry, I kind of derailed us on Bob's perm there. You were saying.
Well, that was about it. I don't really have a favorite line of dialogue, but I do think that my favorite scene is where he just goes ahead and rips off the sleeves of the Santa outfit, comes out in his Santa muscle outfit, and beats up the bad guys for the first time. I find that funny.
It is pretty great, and it does kind of take you back to, because ripping shirts was always Hogan's thing. So the kid in me was pretty fucking stoked about that. What about you, Cody? Favorite character, favorite scene, favorite line?
I kind of wish they would have had. I know it kind of would have taken away from the main elf, but like they have them all in the back playing poker, and obviously they're all kind of scumbags. You don't really get much more out of them other than they're all in the back just playing cards. So obviously they're all just kind of the what you would see in probably mall Santas and or elves.
Dude, we need to make a movie called Mall Santa Massacre, where it's just about like a mall Santa going crazy and trapping all the elves and like other people that work at the mall inside the mall, and then just going like full slasher on them.
They did something like that in God, what was it? A Christmas
Horror Story kind
Horror
of
Story,
has
yes.
that. He's more of a mass shooter, and it's infinitely more depressing. I'm thinking like Chopping Mall, but with the mall Santa. And it would give us an excuse to shoot really sleazy stuff with the elves behind the scenes, like Cody's talking about. Because I thought that was one of the funnest parts of the movie too. But it's like a fucking 90-second scene, you know. And I would have liked that to have been a solid chunk of the runtime. I don't know. The sleazy elves like working to sort of swindle this Santa while he's running around, basically committing more felonies.
Well, yeah.
Would have been hilarious, you know. But it was a kids movie, so they had to soften that part of it a bit. I can't imagine how there's deleted scenes for this. Like, how do you even bring yourself to shoot more than you need for a movie like this is beyond me, but it happened somehow.
It had to be cut for TV, which is why you actually have some of the stuff cut in it.
Well, they put all the cocaine back into it on the Blu-ray.
It's there's not much. It's like maybe 10 minutes total added to the movie, and they add a little bit more to the beginning. It makes a little bit more sense because they lay out the foundation for what the movie's about at the very beginning, whereas it kind of just gets right into it when you watch the TV cut.
I think that's the way to go, because do you really need more exposition with the backstory of this thing?
Oh, yeah. Or a crystal clear picture, really.
I wish I could remember the lines, because again, you know, I watched that Bad Ben thing, and I think I even watched some Monty Python after this, so it purged them from my mind, because the funnier lines I heard in that stuff were obviously more quality. But yeah, there was some couple of moments where I was like, damn, that's actually pretty funny. And I think a couple of them did come from Mila Kunis too. She would probably be my favorite character next to Bob Pinciotti being the sleaziest fucking Christmas elf in the world. His little dance that he does, I knew that I was immediately in love with his performance, because it's so over the top, and you could tell they were just like, be goofy or something. And he just did what he did, and it's forever seared into our brains. But Mila Kunis, I think, is really kind of the heart and soul of the movie. And not even just her, but by extension, everybody at the orphanage. I really liked their performances in the movie. I thought they brought like something kind of fun and heartwarming to it. And also were very clearly playing into the fact that they knew this wasn't a great movie either, but they were just having fun acting together. And I bet you those little kids were having a real great time hanging around Hulk Hogan on the set. So that's probably my favorite sequence of the movie, and just the favorite characters would all be in there. Favorite scene, maybe when he falls down that fucking garbage chute, man. That is just so goddamn funny. Oh man, that's just so funny. I'm gonna imagine that in my brain every time I think of Santa coming down a chimney now. It's just eating shit down the whole thing, like in Santa with Muscles. It's like, I imagine sometimes that happens too, you know, if you are Santa, like you don't gauge the length of the chimney right, and you just fucking put a little bit more gas behind it than you need. Pretty good stuff. It also was not lost on me today that I was, you know, out there delivering mail right up until the moment basically that we started this, and you know, I was kind of doing the Santa thing, only instead of Santa with muscles, it was like Santa with hangover. but we're working through it. So Merry Christmas, kids. Hopefully you enjoy your fucking Pokemons and your iPads or whatever I delivered to your houses.
All right.
I don't know. Would you guys recommend this to people? I guess that's a good closing fucking discussion there.
I think it's fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for kids, and I think for anybody who likes B movies, like trashy movies like this, I think they would get a kick out of it.
Do you think it's still playing on TNT somewhere in the world? Is TNT still a thing? I don't watch cable, so I wouldn't know, but I hope so.
I'm sure it is.
And you know, for every movie that we think is kind of garbage but fun, there's someone else out there in the world that it's like their favorite movie. You know, there probably is somebody who this is their all-time favorite movie is Santa with Muscles. So to you, I would say you need to watch more movies, bro. But also, good on you. You know, it's fun. There's nothing about this movie that is bad enough that I would think anybody should be like offended by its existence. You know, obviously there's those motherfuckers raising their pinkies while they, you know, sip their tea and look down on most of modern cinema and think that it's all garbage. But I mean, just have you ever tried just having some fun with the film? You know, put this on, get like your 10-year-old nephew or something and just watch it with them and sort of watch it through that kid. And you're probably going to have a good time. You know, I think that's Christmas movies by and large. You know, most of them aren't great. I mean, what's your favorite Christmas movie? I guess if you had to pick one, Cody. I think mine might. I think mine might be the Santa Claus. If I had to pick like just an actual Christmas movie, not one that's like a loophole Christmas movie that a lot of motherfuckers like us like to choose. You know, if it's like just a straightforward family Christmas movie, probably that one. Or what was that one we did? White Christmas for Inside Movies Galore. I really like that one. Or we did a couple of them actually. A Wonderful Life. That's probably my favorite one now. It's a what's it called, Brandon? It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
I bought some whole book on it too. I should know this, but yeah, I really fell in love with that, covering it with them. So that might be the ultimate Christmas movie to me if we're talking about like a serious like family Christmas movie. But Santa Claus is probably the one I have the most nostalgia for.
National Lampoon's for me when it comes to like most enjoyable. I mean,
that's right
I
up
always
there.
associate White Christmas. Now, 8-Bit Christmas has it is quickly starting to move up in that, but they made that movie directly for my generation.
I still got to see it, man.
Because it's
I'm sure I'm gonna love it too, but I just haven't seen it yet.
Because I was exactly that age at the time that they have the kids in the movie, because it took place for kids who were young kids, like 9 to 12, around the late 80s. Well, that's what I was. I was exactly in that age range. So I understood everything that was going on in that movie. Even if it was exaggerated, I definitely totally got it, which I figured that's how my parents' generation got the original Christmas Story, you know?
I definitely was born later, but you know, I lived in rural Canada, so it was like 1986 to like 1995. So I feel you, man. I think it's going to be right up my alley, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Oddly enough, holiday movies are like usually the lowest priority for me. I don't typically do them unless it's for these themed discussions. So I'm not one of those people that like I have my regular little like sort of playlist of holiday movies that I watch, right? Like Die Hard, Gremlins, you know, Christmas Vacation. Usually at some point around this time of year, I'll end up watching at least one or two of the Mighty Ducks movies again. And then that's kind of it, man. I mean, I'm not really a big holiday movie guy when it comes to anything other than Halloween, because that just fits into our normal lifestyle anyways. But
what about Home Alone?
Home Alone's classic as well, yeah. Both of them usually. I have a hard time watching just one Home Alone movie anymore. I have to watch it as a double feature if I can fit it in. But Yeah, those are all on there. I mean, those are all those classics. And then I'm working new stuff in, like Happy Holidays from Chris Sieber is one that's, definitely part of our holiday rotation now. Um, but I mean, do you know what I mean? Or do you guys do like a lot of Christmas movies in your house every year?
My wife's real big on it, but me not so much.
It's just, I think when you're a little horror kid, it's it's not your first go-to,
Right.
And even the Christmas themed horror movies, like I'll watch them during December just as ritual, but usually I end up watching those in like summertime, dude. Me and Nami watched Black Christmas in like fucking July or August. Twice we watched it.
Right.
It was, we already got our fucking yearly viewing of that out like during the summertime, but I don't know. I guess what I was getting at is most holiday movies, though, aren't what you would consider great movies. And even the ones that are kind of work the best during the holidays. It's a very once a year kind of a thing, like as much as I love It's a Wonderful Life, that's probably not one I'm going to whip out in July because it's just not that kind of a movie. It's a Christmas movie, so. However sophisticated your taste is with this shit, it's all just stuff that you're fucking sipping eggnog to and eating crappy food and enjoying the holidays with your family. So it doesn't matter if it's Santa with Muscles or the Santa Claus or fucking Die Hard or Trancers. I highly recommend. You're never going to see another Christmas movie where someone tries to kill someone by wedging them in a tanning booth with a surfboard. So, nothing says Christmas like fucking surfboard related homicide. So get out there and enjoy these films with your family. Put on Santa with Muscles today. It's pretty much available in its entirety on YouTube if that's what you prefer. It's also available on Tubi. I would imagine maybe Freevee as well, since a lot of stuff seems to overlap. It's just free because they're not going to charge you for this type of shit anymore. And you should be thankful they don't. Experience this cultural milestone of a film today. And, that's it. We are going to be coming back at you with a special Schlockaholics presentation or a special Septum Sin presentation of Bad Ben, A Night Before Christmas, which I've been calling A Nightmare Before Christmas all fucking day because me and my kid kept talking about it. And it's just hard to not say it that way. The title is not misleading. It's just close enough to something we're all intimately familiar with. That slips of the tongue do happen. So possibly be prepared for some of that in the discussion for it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this Santa with Muscles reminiscing here. What is the worst Hulk Hogan movie you've ever seen, and why is it Santa with Muscles? There's probably actually worse ones. I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched some of those other ones. Maybe nostalgia makes them seem better than they are. But as Cody said, this is no Suburban Commando, but still a good fun bit of dumb fun. So, what more do you need? Say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Don't take steroids. Hulk Hogan was wrong about that. But the rest of it is solid advice, I guess. I don't know. Any closing statements, guys?
To spread a little Yuletide fear.
Brother.
Yes. Yes. Because we're all related when you're on enough cocaine and making a Santa movie with Hulk Hogan.